Welcome to Fractal Palooza. Fractal Palooza is part of the Interplanetary Unconference. And it's being held by the Center for Governance, which of course is courtesy of the planet Ike in the Alien Worlds Federation. This is they agreed to do our first building. Why? Because we can go in 2D. And if you come back next week, you'll be able to visit us in 3D in the spatial application. Why are we here? We're here because we care about making decisions together and being groups. And a lot of this kicks off from Dan Larimer's great book, More Equal Animals and the Go Fractally, Fractal. And what's happened since then? Well, there's been a lot of development work by a lot of people, but fractals have been shooting up. So we want to kind of get the state of who's doing what and where and why. So we will be recording this event, and we will be posting this video in multiple places, including the Center for Governance YouTube channel. So how does this go today? We've got a lot of representatives from great fractals. We're going to give everybody about 5 minutes. You'll see my 5-minute timer come in to talk about why they had the fractal, their biggest wins, their biggest challenges, the next best step. Please hold all questions, because as soon as we're done, we're going to open it up for questions for anybody from any fractal, even if you're in a fractal and have a question for another fractal. And then after that, we'll talk about when should we use a fractal, where they go, anything anybody wants to talk about. So kicking it off here, I don't see Gudasol and Aquadac. Rosemary, do you know if he's on his way?
I just messaged him again, just to remind him.
Okay, we'll hold his spot. Oh, there's Gudasol right there.
What's up, guys?
Yeah, hi. We're going alphabetically, and you're alphabetical. So we're going to hit the timer for 5 minutes. You'll see it up behind me. At 5 minutes, just talk about why your fractal, why you started your fractal, your biggest challenge, your biggest wins, and your biggest next steps.
Sure.
Over to you.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. So sure, a little bit of the origin story of why I was kind of inspired to do this whole thing.
And who you are, too.
Okay, so I'm Douglas, aka Gudasol. I'm a rapper. I'm also the founder of CXC. I've been a full stack dev for at least 15 years. I launched my first full stack app at age 16. So I'm also really passionate about like the future of web. So in 2020, I wrote the Web 4 manifesto, where I laid out what I believe is the future using time and geography. So we're trying to find the best from geographical areas, and we're using time to assign that to currency, and then giving that time to the people as power and as a voting mechanism, which we then use to find the best in each location. And then with that, we can sort of create the new world, which is what I call in Web 4. So I was inspired to get to Aquadac through Eden, which was, I saw like people really doing what I was sort of idealizing at that phase. Then that got split off into Fractally. And then from Fractally, I sort of had my gripes and things like that. But one thing I try to do both in my personal and professional career is to not complain, but instead to implement better systems where I see the possibility for those to be implemented. So what I found was the core value of Fractally and the process that we were experimenting with was that I was giving my time for free to something that I cared about, right? So I wanted to unpack that mechanism and realize, why was I even motivated to do that? And how can I take this energy and put it towards more of my goals, or more like what I want to see the world become, right? So after Fractally sort of fizzled out, I started joining Dan Singjoy's group, the Eden Fractal. And from there, I was engaged again. I was happier. I felt more like the contributions were being honored. And then eventually I was like, I'd love to do something like this for Aquarius Academy. So Aquarius Academy is a school of consciousness. Our goal is to connect you with your connection to the galactic will, so that you can decipher that and then live a more gamified version of reality, if that makes sense. But basically, self-realization, self-actualization, and really respecting the free will of others by maximizing your own choice, your own decision, and allowing people to come together under a common desire. So that last part, coming together under a common desire, is what we sought to do and what we're still seeking to continue to do in Aquarius Academy through Aquadac. So the format there is 12-week sessions where we all have a common theme, and then each individual member decides, okay, how am I going to implement this theme into my own life, into my own projects? So we took the model of a fractal where all the members are contributing to a common goal, and we said, all right, well, let's break that down a little bit. Let's have a common goal for the collective, and then each individual sets their specific goals, and then we all sort of push each other and move each other forward. One thing that I found in my own life is that I do have these long projects. Aquarius Academy started in 2016. CXC started in 2014. So I do have this ability to sort of rotate and come back to things. But in the shorter term, it's really important for us to sort of have these things in front of our face at a regular scheduled interval. So with the weekly format, with the weekly meeting format, we're able to put these, okay, these are my goals. You know, it's in front of your face every Monday. And then when you add the social aspect of what was people sort of ranking each other, we're sort of playing with that concept at Aquadac. But once you add that social peer pressure aspect, it becomes even more powerful, even more useful for the individual. So to wrap things up, we're still growing and evolving what we're doing with the Fractally model at Aquarius Academy. As I said before, I was developing these systems before Eden, so I kind of saw this as, maybe I don't have to just do the Fractally model. So we sort of experimented with something similar to my model. We actually didn't do that very long. And what we're doing now is we're doing a brain or a mastermind format where, like, for example, last week we went around and we shared our content creation strategies. And then we all sort of learned together from there. Again, following the format that we have a common theme, and then we all have our individual goals and projects, which we wish to bring forward. So right on time, back to you. Thank you.
Great. So going alphabetically, I'm going to talk about the art fractal. My passion is how do we take this fractally methods and tools and introduce them to real-world organizations. I'm starting with nonprofits. So I did a fractal experiment because my first question was this: could I get people to actually do this in the real world? And I took people that were typically older and less technical, a bunch of artists. And at first they said, there's no way we will ever get together online. That's just, these tools are crazy. We use Zoom, and before you knew it, people got people, they got other people. We ended up getting a full group of people in Zoom. Then they started using Zoom, but the biggest win was just the communications, breaking up into breakout rooms and getting them to openly share. People who never got to talk began talking. And as a result of these discussions that came out of this, they actually changed their name. They were the Art Association. They realized that it wasn't about art, it was about the artists. So they've actually changed their name. Something that came up was, how do we promote our artists? So they just had a big visit artists in their studio with a flyer and everything. So people actually started promoting each other's things and doing things that they never had to do before. The biggest challenge we had, though, was on this idea of giving appreciation. They go, well, if I appreciate Josh, then will Gudasol get offended? And if I like Gudasol, what about Rosemary? And so that was another big challenge we have to come. It was an education process to say, you're not grading the person whether they're a good person, or like you're saying, just what did you appreciate? It's like if you go to a meal at a restaurant and you say, we had a full course meal. What did you appreciate to that meal? That doesn't mean that you hate the chef. It just means that, oh, I really like that. And we appreciate everybody for coming. So getting people over the hurdle of this idea of ranking for some of them was the biggest challenge that we did. So we basically ran that for about 3 months, which was my target, to see if it would go. And I took all the lessons learned. I also realized people only have an hour. So we started to also get the idea of alternating, talking about ranking people, giving people constant wins for what they did, little appreciation. And then we would elect the delegates and they would focus on what are we going to do together. So what I call creating unstoppable momentum, where you get a win from doing things and achieving actual things together with roadmaps. So why aren't I doing that one anymore? Because I'm doing this as part of my doctoral dissertation, and I polluted my sample pool by working with them, so I can't use them again to take my measurements. So I've got 2 bigger, better, more active art associations ready to go as soon as I get my chapter 3 approved, and I'm working on my chapter 2 mostly done. Once I get chapter 3 approved, then I get permission to actually go collect data. But I have to be a little different because I can't even really tell people what we're doing so much. There's you have to be very careful what you give and what information you collect, and it's a whole big thing. So that is the art fractal. Is Dwayne here to talk about the Alien Worlds fractal? All right, if he doesn't show up, we'll get someone to talk about it. Next one up is Dan. I'm knowing Dan, he's going to screen share. Screen share should be enabled for everybody if you need to share your screen, but Dan's going to talk about the Optimism fractal.
Okay, sounds great. Well, thank you, Eric. Great to hear your updates with the art fractal. Great to hear from Gudasol too, and looking forward to hearing from Dwayne or whoever talks about the Alien Worlds fractal. Lots of exciting stuff going on there too. Great to see everybody. I love all the fractal friends here, so really cool. I'll go share, as I've gotten accustomed to in these fractal meetings, sharing quick presentations in 5 minutes or less. So I'll share my screen a little bit, and I'll also mention a little bit about Eden Fractal too. We just had the Eden Fractal meeting. I think that might helpfully just provide a little introduction to what I've been working on for the past 1.5 years, as well as what the new stuff we're doing with Optimism Fractal as well. But I'll try to provide a quick presentation so you get a high-level overview, and maybe the first minute or so we got Eden Fractal and then we'll Optimism Fractal after that. So EdenFractal.com, this is a community that started along with a bunch of awesome, amazing friends and builders and creators about 1.5 years ago. We've been hosting meetings every Wednesday at 15:30 UTC or 16 UTC. Everybody's welcome to join. We're creating innovative games and shows and tools. And yeah, basically we meet for a couple of weeks. We play these fractal consensus games, and we've been building the tools as we go and inspiring people to build public goods and refine it to have a great time. We've also been filming videos every week too. So I have a little summary here on the website where you can learn, and there's articles on Eden Creators, which is a media outlet that I created to foster and curate and write articles and make videos about all this and help to collaborate and like show off all the cool tools that people are building and stuff. So you can check out EdenFractal.com to learn more about the tools that we're building and the games and the shows that we're creating, and everybody's welcome to join as well. There's a whole more detail there. I'll also share this Luma link if anyone wants to get email reminders. I invite you to come join. A bunch of amazing people you can meet. I've met so many amazing friends there, and I encourage you all to check it out. And then also, yeah, we publish the videos too. So you can watch it on our YouTube channel, which is Eden Creators YouTube channel. And we also publish videos with detailed show notes for each episode too, to show all the cool stuff that people are doing each week to help promote fractals and help people cooperate better than ever before, including Optimism Fractal, which I'll get to in a moment. It's our new initiative that we're launching in a new fractal with a community called the Optimism Collective. Each of these you can also check out show notes too. I work closely with Rosa Marie on making like these videos really cool and informative for people, and then putting out stuff that people can check it out and learn however they have time for. We have show notes where you can see all the different sections. We play with a new kind of consensus game called Agendas after a game called Respect Game, where people can share topics, and it's like it's a really great community driven way for people to collaborate and understand cool stuff that people are doing and be able to hear everybody's voices. So you can check out show notes. notes for each of the Eden Fractal meetings. This was just one for a 69th meeting, which came up pretty recently. And you can also get the Eden Creators YouTube channel where we make lots of videos about for every Eden Fractal meeting. We've done 73 so far. We just had it. And then we also make shows that are like related to help them promote it, such as Fractal Apple, carry on the new series Growing Optimism with Eden Fractal, Eden Town Hall, Creative Talk, Community Stories, hosted by Rosa Marie. There's also an episode of Gudasol where you can learn more about Aquadac, and we have a Town Hall with Eric, more about Art Fractal too. But anyway, I only have 2 minutes left, so I'll go ahead and I'll share a little bit, because from Eden Fractal, what has kind of emerged as we're continuing to do Eden Fractal meetings and growing Eden Fractal is Optimism. We learned about the Optimism Collective, which is a great community that's focused on creating public goods and improving human coordination, working with the Ethereum community. And so we have a little like playlist here where you can learn about all our meetings where we've actually discussing building Optimism Fractal and growing Optimism Fractal with Eden Fractal community members. And so we have short clips here where you can learn about Optimism and what we're doing and how the initiative has emerged. And we actually just hosted our first Optimism Fractal meeting on Friday, like 5 days ago, and we're hosting the next one on Monday, and they're going to be on Monday every Monday at 17 UTC. So I encourage you to check it out. We're just kind of getting started, and we put up the website, everything like that. There's a Luma link where you can register for the event. I invite everybody to join. They're really fun and really exciting, and a really great way to help the world, to help people in the community and help create public goods, help people coordinate and so forth. You can check it out, luma.lu.ma/optimismfractal. Basically, this is a community on a mission to grow optimism, and it's helpful for people involved with fractal communities and growing communities in general, and also people who are interested in the optimism community, people who are building and creating tools for public good and so forth. And we're pioneering all the stuff we've been doing at the Genesis Fractal and Eden Fractal and so forth, and Aquadac and Art Fractal, and bringing it to the Optimism community to show them how to use it. We just put up a quick website, optimismfractal.com, where you can learn more. This will be updated soon, but it's got quite a lot of nice stuff. Shout out to Rosa Marie, who's been super helpful and making some of the art and the videos, like editing and stuff like that. And shout out to the whole community, really. It's been a really great community effort. Shout out to Gudasol, who I think is here. He's built a lot of the great tools for Optimism Fractal on EVM, and Vlad, who I think is here. He's built a lot of the great tools for Eden Fractal as well. I have like 13 seconds left, but you can watch the first video where we introduce Optimism Fractal over here. And then there's also an article where you can see how this kind of was emerging from Optimism Fractal and Eden Fractal. I got to wrap it up here, but I encourage you all to check it out and join our Telegrams and Discords and Luma. And then also on Eden Creators or Optimistics, new site we're launching where we're curating more fractals. Thank you, and my apologies for going a little bit over time.
And don't forget that Rosemary implemented the show notes for the fractal meetings, which is an important innovation for all fractals.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
So next, stemming from the Genesis Fractal, I know Josh Seymour has studied holacracies and all kinds of things, and is working on governance now. So Josh will talk to us about the Prime Law Society.
Yeah, thank you for the ability to be here. It's pretty cool hanging out with all the fractal friends. I like how you said that, Dan. So I want to talk about a new idea that I'm excited about. It's a fusion of different things. It's all based around this concept called the Prime Law. And the Prime Law is, it's like the ultimate one commandment or public good. It's pretty simple. There's a preamble, but the law itself is just 3 very short articles. And the reason why I'm excited about this is that if the purpose of human life is to prosper and live happily, more or less, then the function of governance is to provide the conditions that let individuals fulfill that purpose. So the Prime Law guarantees those conditions by forbidding the use of initiatory force, fraud, or coercion by any person or group against any individual property or contract. And the first article, Article 1, is that no person, group of persons, or government shall initiate force, threat of force, or fraud against any individual self, property, or contract. And this is the largest article. The second article is that force is morally and legally justified only for protection from those who violate Article 1. So it's like a self-defense approach here. And then Article 3, which is one thing that makes this very novel, is that no exceptions shall exist for Articles 1 and 2. And so being able to, this is pretty cool, but being able to actually do what's in these 3 articles from a functionality standpoint in terms of tech and humans being organized, that's the problem that we're looking to solve here. So the Prime Law is the fundamental natural law of protection. And in this case, it directs all decisions and actions of everyone within this parallel society that I'm talking to you about. And it's not open to amendment or change. It's the one commandment. So the reason for the fractal is to build a strong parallel society and eventually the prime law network state in the long term. And if you're not familiar with the network state, one short definition is that a network state is a highly aligned online community with the capacity for collective action that crowdfunds territory around the world and eventually gains diplomatic recognition from pre-existing states. So in order to do something like this, you have to build a society and then a union and then an archipelago and then a state. And I'll unpack that here in a moment. But that's the reason for the fractals, to build these things. And the backbone of all of this stuff is a global and digital network, which is a very large undertaking, and it's going to take stages of development and a local and physical networks. And we'll talk more about this. So the biggest wins that this thing has going for it, even though it's in basically like very early stages right now, is there is a small army of people around the world, especially in the United States, that are very passionate about living in a parallel society governed by the prime law. And whenever these people share the prime law and their enthusiasm for it with other people, it seems to really be resonating. It seems to be an idea that's time has come nowadays in the world that we live in, which is very encouraging. And I do believe that this thing is something that can unify lots of random individuals and collectives. It can be the thing that is kind of a major common denominator among all of them, where they don't have to interrupt what they're currently doing, but they can, be involved. They can agree to govern themselves, using this prime law and then be a part of the society in that way. So the biggest challenges are basically building, what needs to be built. So initially, getting a startup society going, and then in turning a startup society into a network union, that makes it a digital community capable of collective action. And so then we would have a network union, right? That would be the next big challenge, turning that network union into a network archipelago, manifest that collective action in the real world as the community crowdfunds physical properties around the world and connects them via the internet. And then in doing this, we have a network archipelago as defined in the network state, if you've checked that out. And then finally, ultimately an impressive enough network archipelago can achieve diplomatic recognition from an existing government, thereby becoming a true network state. And so that would be like the final form here. So the next big steps are basically just a progression of doing that. Like right now, the next step is to launch the Prime Law Society, and then just kind of go through the different phases. So phase one is found the startup society. Oh, I'm going to pause here because I'm out of time.
Well, great. So far we've seen quite a collection of what's came out from the Genesis fractal, and everything from art and self development and making the world a better place and the prime law. So it's nice that we have a representative from that source right there, Gregory Wexler. Tell us what's been going on with psinq.
You're muted, Gregory.
Thank you. So it's actually, I guess, pronounced psinq. Psinq. So kind of that thing that Elon Musk brought into the Twitter building, right? So in essence, I'm Gregory Wexler, business entrepreneur. I'm a team member of Fractally. With all the regulation by enforcement that government was putting on, we saw that applying a token to a solution was going to be met with significant impact. And we reflected upon that and recognized that we need to remove the concept of a token from that, and also recognized it actually may be a good thing. It actually may be better to separate money from decision making. You eliminate a lot of problems that we experience today. When the founders of the of this country, the U.S., created the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and a number of other documents, there was no internet. There was no way of providing a level of accountability that was needed. They created these three branches of governance, the judicial, legislative, and executive bodies. The problem I see is that they left off we the people, the most important element in that series of checks and balances. Fractally came into being because we recognized that this representative democracy just wasn't doing it for we the people. When you look back, we vote on a candidate and they sit in office for 2 to 4 years. And you hope that your vote is going not to support their opinion, but that they're supporting our opinion and our values. Unfortunately, that's not what's happening today. In fact, it's not what's happening worldwide. Enter the concept of fractally, a method by which people are put into a position of being able to make informed decisions that reflect the values of the community. And for those individuals who at some point no longer reflect those values, other people can be put into a council. These are important factors. And with the fact that we now have solutions that weren't available 200-300 years ago, like an internet, that now facilitates us being able to effectively communicate, share values, document some stuff, and recognize the actions that people are taking in a much more rapid sense, we can now make improvements and change iteratively, like we do with so many other things. We decided to move on from fractally to this entity that we call psinq. So what is psinq? We recently secured our 501(c) nonprofit company status. We are a research and technology company, much like Fractally, who's focused on improving human coordination. Our mission is to help community to work together by empowering individuals through platforms, frameworks, and models that we create. We want to help communities grow. We want to help communities build trust, respect, discover leaders, and help to make decisions together in a more unified fashion. We want to offer a level of transparency that we don't see today. That is, in essence, the basis and the core of what psinq desires to become. We'll be making announcements in the next few months. We'll be announcing 3 communities, and we hope that you get the opportunity to spend some time with us and help provide insight and feedback as we improve the model. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. You know, Dan talked a bit about the Eden fractal, and part of that looked at all areas where we could put fractals, and one of those was gaming. And so they went into Alien World just because it has a big gaming environment that you can write code on top and get the data. It's not closed. And one of those spinoffs came with actually the work with aliens, and even somebody working with alien athletes within that gaming environment. So Spacewrangler Joe is here to talk us about a new fractal that says, can you apply this within gaming? And I will put out that Dynamics of Hegemony is a new game that's going into play testing right now, whose job it is to add the governance right into the play. So you've got a group of people get put into groups, so you have to make decisions within those groups, and those groups need to make decisions with each other so that they can succeed and go out and build interstellar markets. So I'm very interested in the application of that. Joe, what can you tell us about your Upland fractal?
All right, thanks. Okay. So yeah, let me just start with kind of how I got involved with this. More Equal Animals, Dan Larimer, governance. I tend to agree with a lot of the things that were said in the book and the interviews that I saw afterwards. So I was attracted to this governance model and trying to take part of it and do what I can. And that's where I met a lot of these people here. And it was a great experience. It was interesting to see how everything had grown and changed. I've become involved with quite a few alien worlds. I had played and I had seen that they had transferred over to a governance model. Upland is also another metaverse, and they also have a governance model. Alien Worlds has a much larger players on, according to DAP Radar, but Upland actually has a governance thing as well where you can vote. And I think at their last vote, they had like 30,000 people vote. So even though they're a smaller game in as far as DAP Radar is concerned, the actual interaction as far as voting goes within the platforms, Upland is much higher. I think if you look at the planet voting governance stuff in Alien Worlds, we're looking at like a couple hundred maybe or something like that. So as far as scale goes, that seems to be working. Although in Upland, you only, the centralized group kind of creates what people vote on, right? So we created this group as Upland players and Alienware players to kind of explore governance in our own right and maybe create items to discuss and vote on and do these governance actions on that aren't created by the centralized thing. Again, like Gregory was saying, with, you know, the we the people kind of thought in mind there. So so we created this group. We're fairly new. Most of the people that I work with don't use Telegram. So although Vlad and Tadas have created great tools that a lot of them utilize Telegram, we had to kind of figure out a way to get around that and not use those because, you know, the onboarding process, right? If it's too difficult, it's difficult to get people involved. And so we created consensus NFTs for our group, which I'll show here in a couple minutes. I know I only have a couple minutes left. So let's talk about our biggest wins real quick. That's the top on our list of things to discuss here. We as a group got together and formed a smaller group to prepare for a hackathon at the Interplanetary Unconference, and we won the community thing. So our small group, only been together for a little over a month, entered a hackathon and actually won in the community. So I was like shocked and amazed. So that's been our biggest win as of so far. Hopefully there'll be a lot more. Biggest challenges is just getting people who aren't familiar with the Fractally process or governance or how this all works, just to understand the big picture of it. I think that was the biggest challenge. And then the next big steps for us is to, again, work on our win from the hackathon and build on that. And we want to work with Alien Worlds and Upland and our developers and get the APIs in use and get things going. And I've reached out. We have some great developers in the group here. We have, you know, Douglas, Vlad, Tadas. Douglas is helped out. Vlad created a consortium. That's where we won the community thing on the hackathon. And I think even though our group's so young, we may have the most people voting on consortium at all. I think we've got up to like 90 votes now or something, or I don't know. We've got a lot of people that have actually utilized that platform. So that's a big win for us too, I think, is actually using these tools that are made. And then with my last 30 seconds, let me share my screen. One of the people here, the agency here, created some of these NFTs, and these are our consensus NFTs. This one's one of my favorite. It's a little baby Upland alien here. And on the front, it's the imagery, the artwork. And on the back, it has our notes, what we reached consensus on, who was there, and it has everything. And then so the way that we reach consensus and do this is mint it. All right. Wow. Just in time.
Perfect. So we're seeing the impact that Dan Larimer's book had from this, going into all areas of trying to put governance into personal development and into business and into nonprofits and into games. And I kind of like games because I can test. That's why I'm excited about dynamics of hegemony, just because I can test out a lot of things before I expose it to the real world. So now I'll open it up from questions. You can either raise your hand or put a question in the chat. And I guess the first question I have for anybody is you personally, what are you most proud of about what you've seen going in the areas you're in? Any kind of thing that you've been really excited to be a part of, and why? Gregory, go ahead.
So I'll say that it takes a village to raise a child, and in this case, the child is our voices, the ability to be heard, the ability to make a difference. It's one thing to see a number of people who are simply armchair critics, as you see on a lot of social media websites. It's another to have people like you standing up, standing out, reaching out, developing communities, and making reverberations out there to take action, to make a change. And that's what's exciting for me. Thank you.
Any of the other fractals?
What was the question again?
What are you personally most proud of or excited about? Just in what you've been involved in. Let's talk about you personally.
Well, Dan, go ahead. You have your hand up, but I'll go next.
Okay, sure. Looking forward to hearing you, Gudasol. So it's kind of a tough question to answer because I've been focused on this constantly for the past 2 years or so, and it's been like my life motivation. I wake up every day and I'm stoked to be doing it with y'all. So there's so much I could say, but to summarize briefly, well, as briefly as I can, or just like kind of off the top of my head right now, I'm just really thankful. I saw Joshua wrote in the chat that he's proud of the perseverance of everyone here, and I said me, you, and I saw Gregory, so Rosemary said, Gregory, you made me cry with a laughing face. So yeah, I just I love to see it. A lot of people here I haven't seen in a while. So it's amazing to see the people from the Genesis Fractal. We did about 30 meetings there, and that was such a wonderful experience getting to know all you. So thank you so much, Dan Larimer and Gregory, for hosting that. It's great. It's great to see you both here. I hope that you're doing wonderful, as well as everybody from the psinq team. And yeah, so that was an amazing experience. I'm incredibly proud to have participated and played a role and met everybody there, as well as everybody who participates in the Eden Fractal. I'm super grateful to hear Gudasol say that it helped inspire him with Aquadac, and everybody in the with the Alien Worlds community, with Spacewrangler Joe's doing with Upland Fractal. I know Vlad also has been doing great stuff with the AW Fractal as well. Mentioned to Das, and also Lisa and Perry have been doing wonderful work. So I'm incredibly grateful to get to know everybody here, and for all the amazing things that everybody's done. That's totally changed my life, and that's totally changed many people's lives here, and I think we'll continue to make the world such a better place. It gives me a lot of hope for the future, and I'm really proud of everyone here and everything we've done so far. So thank you all so much.
And we're still open for any questions from anybody here. For those that don't know me, I have no trouble asking questions, so I've got a lot of them. So if you don't ask them, I will. Okay, here's a question that I have. Onboarding, you've got these people that may or may not know anything about governance. They're coming for a reason. How do you get people to, and Joe talked about this a lot, how do you get people plugged in to say, oh, change the way you think or behave. Let's make this a habit of you. How do you reach out to them? How do you do? And I'll just start by saying, when I'm reaching out to real world people, I don't talk about Fractal at all. I just say, you want this? Here's an easy way to get this. And I hide that as a first step. I view that once I get people in, then I can educate them more and more. But for me, I just say, you have this problem. And of course, doing my doctoral thesis, I can back it up to say, you want this? Here, I have proof that this is how you do it. And this is a methodology that gets you that. So I guess I'll pick one to start. Gregory, how do you think we do this in this market as you roll out your communities?
I think there was a lot of opportunity in today's social media to enable people to express themselves. Unfortunately, we go to the short-term thinking, lowest common denominator of just critiquing, venting, and putting forth their mindset as how, they want to give a piece of their mind. And that's all fine and good. People should have the ability to express themselves. Unfortunately, when COVID-19 hit and you had various elitist individuals, organizations trying to lobby to quelch such noise, that became more challenging. And then, of course, raised the ire of the general populace saying, you can't do that. We have freedom of speech. We have First Amendment rights, et cetera, et cetera. How do we do this? How do we overcome this? Solutions like fractals, communities, groups gathering together and continuing to press forward will make a difference. But in order to stop the disinformation, the lobbyist untruths, we need to put solutions together that hold people accountable and build true love, respect, and honor for one another by building solutions where people can validate each other, that they can't come from some mass media or they can't come from some government that points a finger and says, you are evil, you are bad. If the community sees that your efforts are good, that you're putting forth good thoughts, public goods, and you are hence rewarded with respect, that's going to hold stronger than any other network. You start with the nuclear families. Just as it's described in More Equal Animals, you grow into communities and you continue to grow further. We have access to tools, solutions via this internet. Let's make the best of them. And as such, that's what we're trying to do with Fractally, and we're pushing forward with psinq. You separate the money from this recognition of people, and you gain something even better that's not manipulable.
Gudasol. Great, thank you, Gregory. Gudasol.
Sure. So I'm gonna kind of answer the question and reiterate the question is like, why should people care? Pretty much, right? How do we bring people in? How do you meet people where they're at? I think the most simplest thing to realize is that not everybody wants to be on a Zoom meeting every day. And Spacewrangler Joe already mentioned it's kind of hard to get people to vote on chain, right? Because it's these whole sort of onboarding steps. So one of the reasons that we're all mostly in multiple fractals is because we're already past that preliminary foundational, we have the EOS account, we have the Wax account to do these type of things. So I think it's important to understand your core group before you get too idealistic and start to say, look how good my system is. This should be running the whole world because the other systems are less efficient. And to do that, we have to be really humble. And you have to accept that your reality is your reality. And what's best for the world is really what's best for the world from your perspective. And you have to add that from your perspective on it and understand that everybody has a different perspective. And once you can start to honor other people's perspectives, you look at where they're looking. And people are looking, they're perceiving the reality that they want. They're perceiving their questions, their needs answered, right? And then you get into the aspect of energy, like what's the least effort that I can do to solve this problem? We're seeing the huge rise of AI, which is wonderful. And the simple reason for that is it's the easiest way to solve the problem, right? I generated a thumbnail for a YouTube image while I was in this meeting because I was just typing it. I didn't have to go into Photoshop. I didn't have to go into Canva or anything else. So I believe that we're going to get there as far as creating a system which creates rapid change once you, number one, understand your core base. Number two, are humble enough to not wave your you-know-what around to say, look how beautiful things are. but instead like look at what other people are looking at and try to solve the problems from there. And once you have that sort of connection where you're really good at solving this particular type of problem, and then you're the least energy way to solve that problem, then you go back and then you start to make it more easier to bring people into the foundation. So there are multiple different things that need to happen at the same time. But once you're really good at solving a problem, and then you can go back and get really good at bringing people into the foundational technology needed to operate on that system, that's when you can then just have the, you know, the basement set up so that each person can build whatever house on top of that they want, because there'll be a door to bring people in and there'll be food in the fridge which people need. So I hope I didn't go too crazy with the analogies, but that's what I think.
Well, and a lot of what I'm hearing is it's about people. You know, it starts at the people level, and we've done a lot to make it safe, and we can talk about that. Dan Larimer, thank you so much for being there. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I'm very proud that you all are still here doing all of this stuff. You know, this has been a multi-year effort, and it's great to see all the innovation and all the ways that people are trying to apply the ideas of my book. I wanted to comment and say one of the ideas I mentioned in the book, which is easy to lose sight of, is that the means must justify themselves. If you judge a particular process according to whether or not it produces the outcome in the world that you want it to produce, then people are going to hack and manipulate the process and undermine the principles that make the process justify itself in order to accommodate some other end, which is something other than the consensus itself. So to the extent that you're judging the system by the end instead of the process, right? It's the journey, not the destination. Or as Jordan Peterson says, you have to be willing to confront the truth and deal with the consequences of the truth rather than devolve into or resort to lying in a hope to get a short-term benefit. It's the same kind of thing. You have to support the means, make sure that the means justify themselves and know why the means are the right means and not some other means, or whatever system is put in place will devolve into the same types of tyranny that we see today. And I'm really glad, Gregory, you mentioned that the family unit needs to be the basis, at least for any fractal that's trying to create a parallel society. There are certain values that are built into the success of human civilization, and I think family is one of those values. And if you can't reach consensus as a family unit, then your family shouldn't have a say in the higher level processes of society. And so that should just be, you know, it's not about individuals. I know that everyone wants to talk about individual rights and everyone gets a voice and everything like that. But if you're dividing families and are allowing a family to present a divided front to the rest of society, then you're actually undermining the basic building block necessary to raise the next generation. And you're disincentivizing consensus, right? If you can't have family consensus, how in the world are you going to have consensus at a broader level? Or as Jordan Peterson says, clean up your room first, clean up your family first, and then go out there and as a family coordinate with the next layer up in the hierarchy of cooperation. But that's with respect to the political or alternative parallel society type of fractals. Obviously does not make as much sense in gaming fractals or other specialized things where you're participating as individuals, but anything that impacts all of society should be that. And I also want to mention, like, biggest problem we have in society today is knowing the truth. Particularly with AI, it's the single biggest producer of fraudulent videos, audio, evidence that can be used to manipulate the opinions of people. And so whatever consensus algorithm we're dealing with needs to take that into consideration. At the time, how fast technology is advancing. At the time Molecular Animals was written, the concept of AI being able to do what it's doing today seemed very far-fetched to me. Now, any one of you could be an AI, and I wouldn't be able to tell without an extensive web of trust of people that can vouch and so forth. And I think that these networks need to focus on how do you build trust for information, because we have pollution of information in society, and it's only going to get worse. The deceptions are only going to get greater. And if people are not dealing with truth, they're not dealing with reality, and you're basically walking blind and you're going to fall into a hole. So it's critical for each and every one of us to be able to discern reality as accurately as possible, and that is a public good. And we have to be able to do that in the face of AI systems that are producing false evidence, in the face of mass media, in the face of the fact that most other people, if you don't guard your own sources of information, then you're just going to be replicating and passing forward unverified information and polluting the thing. So we need to inoculate or put a fence around our communities and generate as much firsthand verified knowledge as possible. Otherwise, we're just going to lose touch with reality as a society, and it won't matter what form of governance you have. If the people involved are dealing with wrong, inaccurate, manipulated information, the producers of that information are going to control society. And so those are the threats. I'm just want to throw that out there, make sure the means justifies the end. Make sure the means justify themselves. Start with the family unit and focus on truth. That's what I have to say.
Very good. Jason, we're getting toward the top of the hour here. Give us a question.
It's as much a comment as a question, truly. I appreciate everything, the presentation, the commentary, the direction, the works. I think you guys are onto the right stuff in so many ways, and that the competition is healthy. I feel as though trying to rush all the way to an end in itself, it runs into folly, right? It's true that I appreciate the nuance in the philosophy of taking the Machiavellian ethic of the Machiavellian ethic, where people will say the means justify the end. They're justifying a violation of their ethics, right, for the consequence. And it's like the idea of being polite even though you're lying, right? If you think it's for the greater good. And that I appreciate the identity of denominators, the lowest common denominators that we can agree on honestly as a set, come together to something greater than the sum of those low common denominators. They're out there. There are low common denominators that people rush to the lowest of to form the largest group to get the power in numbers in some way, somehow. And that's sort of like a division. That's the definition of a political wedge, right? And that's what media is manipulating people around, is they identified those wedges, those low common denominators. And what we can do is we can rearrange the math on the greatest common denominator. Actually, we can find the greatest sum total, and for what's available for a group of very diverse perspectives and interests and goals and stuff. So with only 2 minutes left, I guess I wanted to offer that appreciation and say I think the competition is healthy. Thank you.
So I want to wrap it up. First, I want to congratulate Jorge Ramos, who joined us, who runs a Spanish-speaking Fractal, which is all based on commerce, coming up with introducing and doing each other's commerce. So a lot of work there. I want to thank everybody for being here. Let me just end up by saying what most impressed me about the Genesis Fractal was the fact I've been in lots of organizations, small, big, huge, internationally, all over government, industry, academia, and you rarely understand what's really going on because people dominate the conversations. There's people like a lot of us that talk all the time and we don't hear. And so what I heard in Go Fractally is people talking about each other, heated on, disagreeing vehemently. And I think an environment where people feel safe to actually say, so you know what's going on. These people don't hate each other. It's kind of like when our founders argued, and I think John Adams one time just blasted another one, then went and sat by him specifically to say, I don't hate you, but I disagree with you. And I think that's one of the things that I think comes across. And when Dan Larimer talked about building from the ground up, that means within that small organization, you have that kind of understanding and safety to share, even if you move up as a block. Again, thank you, everybody. This is part of the Interplanetary Unconference, which you can find at interplanetaryunconference.com. This is hosted by the Center for Governance, which you can find at governance.super.site. There's also a link there to our YouTube channel. That's where you'll find this, in addition to seeing the video pop up on the Telegram groups. Thank you again for everybody. Love to have this again sometime.
Thank you so much, Eric, and thank you so much, everybody.